Oh, this thing is throwing away my videos. I hate that. Okay. Anyway, I want to talk about the material nature of will, a material reduction of will, my material reduction of will, and what I conclude from this reduction. Okay, first of all, I have to talk about material reductions in general because people seem to have the wrong idea about it. So when you have a material reduction, you have a bundle of sensations, okay, perceptions of the object. You manipulate these, interacting, motor function with the world, and you reduce this into parts. Okay, you boil off the water, you do everything, but it's not like reducing in the kitchen where I'm going to reduce this broth. I'm boiling away the water. You have to catch the water too, so you get all the parts, every part. Okay, and you separate it into parts, and then you can separate the parts into their parts as well. And the issue of atomism is whether that goes on forever. Okay. Now, if there's a property in the whole that is present in one of the parts, and you attribute that, the cause of that property in the whole to the part. For example, let's say you take river water from the river, or ocean water, or tap water, and you reduce it. You reduce it into some minerals and then some purified water. Okay. Well, the wetness in the river water, you can attribute that to the wetness of water, the pure water. So that's the part, water, that causes the wetness. Okay, on the other hand, you can reduce the water, right, into hydrogen and oxygen, neither one of which will be wet. They'll both be gaseous. Okay, so, but you don't say, oh, there's no such thing as wetness. Look, I proved it. Oxygen, hydrogen, both. Neither is wet. Therefore, there is no wetness. It's an illusion. No, the wetness is real. It's a property of the water and of the parts when they're put together. And you do know in this case, this is the purpose of the materialistic reduction, is that you can realize that there does have to be a property in those parts, in hydrogen and oxygen, either one or both, that explains wetness. Now, the property of hydrogen and oxygen that explains the property of wetness in the whole are their chemical binding properties. See, the fact that they can bind and share an electron and have this tight, robust, molecular system, that's the property that creates the wetness. Okay, so the parts do have that property. Okay. Now, on the case of something like more ethereal, like beauty. Okay, with beauty, we don't really know. Wait, is it real? Is it just a poet's idea? What is that? Okay, well, you take a flower that is beautiful, or anything that you think is beautiful. If you're some kind of psychotic person who doesn't think flowers are beautiful. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't insult you. I knew somebody once that didn't really like flowers, and how is that possible? But anyway, flowers are beautiful. When you break it down into chemicals, you say, well, it's not beautiful, or if it is beautiful, it's in a different way, and it's the same stuff as all the ugly things in the world. You can't say there's no beauty. No, you have to say, well, okay, there's no one part that is responsible for the beauty. It's the way that they're mixed and arranged, something to do with the way they're arranged, and it will be their properties that are reflected in that arrangement. All right. So with will, same sort of thing. You can't say, if we break it down into the parts, will, and all the chemical parts in human, and we look, we've done this, and did we boil off some water we didn't catch? Yeah, most very assuredly. But we look at a lot of parts, and we don't see will in there. And even if we try to really expand all what we think we see in the parts and the energy and stuff, including the fact we don't know, but that should be, some sorts of energy and these kinds of things, we don't see anything that alone, any part alone, you can't just say, well, it's the blood put the blood. You could kind of say the brain, but we're trying to break it further down in that, and you look in the brain, it's like, well, we don't know one part. Okay. That it's still possible, but we just don't recognize that there's one part that's very willful. Okay. But assuming that we don't see the parts, we don't see one part that's doing that, but then it's going to have to come from a mixture of the parts. And there does have to be some property of molecules and atoms that explains the emergence of the property of the whole. Okay. The wetness of water is an emergent property that comes from the hydrogen and oxygen one combination. The will is an emergent property. There does have to be, according to a materialist way of looking at this, some property, though, of molecules, of the atoms, of these parts at all the levels, which explains, which is the property that is able to emerge in combination. And so this property of the explanation of how it combines with something else. Because that's the other thing, is if you don't see the property of like wetness wholly in one of the parts, then you know it's got to be a combination. So this property you're looking for is a property. It's not just a property of one thing, it's a property of one thing as it acts in relation to another thing. So that's my conclusion about will, and that this is what we're looking for. Now, since this might get lost, I'll wait for another video to say what candidates there might be for such a property of elementary particles.